Hi there, and welcome back to the third podcast in this SMB series that I'm doing. Now, admittedly, the last couple of SMB-based podcasts have been centered around customers, sysadmins out there in the field using VMware. But I thought it would be interesting to do a podcast where we went in a different direction and actually spoke to an organisation and a set of individuals who are actually providing services to the SMB. And here's the reason why. These guys often meet many different customers in the days of their work and in the months of their work. So they're often looking across different types of industries, different size of businesses, different types of SMB. And what they see of the SMB is quite a different kind of view. I think often, whether you work in an SMB or in a large corporate, you often reside inside a bubble and you see the world very much from the prism of your own making. And what you don't see is the kind of wider industry trends that are taking place. So with me today, I've got Wayne Sayers from Telius. I first came across this organisation a couple of months ago. Actually, one of the individuals at Telius was a former student of mine on a VMware course. But I want to hand over to Wayne Sayers, who's on the call with me. Wayne, can you tell us what does Telius do, and what is it that you're offering to the SMB marketplace?
Yes, good morning. Telius is effectively a group of senior IT professionals who have quite a diverse but complementary set of skill sets. And we've been together now for several years with our own customers, and we've come together to effectively provide a group support, or shall we say a corporate support for all of those customers. We work in the enterprise markets as well on a consultative basis, but we also maintain all of the IT aspects of our SMB customers. Whilst we've been looking at those SMB customers, we all have our individual approaches to those customers. But as a group, we've decided to try and rationalize the way that we support. And we want to standardize on the type of platforms that we're providing to those customers. So very early on, we were starting to look at virtualization as a way of standardizing the platform, forgetting about what it was actually running on, and concentrating on the services and the support that we gave to those SMB type customers. And over the last 2 years, we've put a model together. We've had our problems, and we've made different decisions at times. But I think we've now got a pretty good platform to build virtually any type of IT solution on the top of.
Sure. I mean, I think when we were discussing this previously offline, you sort of described the solution as if like it's an office in the block. And I think I said to Steve, your partner, this is like V block for the SMB. I think I even said it's like a SMB block. So it's like a kind of prepackaged solution that you're really offering. Is that right?
It is, and it's exactly the right way to describe it. It's a V block, obviously, for the big boys. That's fine, and that's all around standardization, rationalization of systems, making sure that you can conform to standards and so on. And that's exactly what we're trying to provide to the SMB markets.
Because I guess at the moment they're kind of excluded from these bigger players because of the cost implications of acquiring that kind of kit for a small to medium-sized business.
And yes, and that was the problems and the issues that we had when we were trying to build up this model. Virtualization, making use of the power of the hosts was important. It meant that whatever our SMB customer wanted, we could provide another virtual machine, and we would know that within the limits of the underlying hosts, we could support that requirement. But the costs of providing that to start with, when we were looking at this using VMware and vSphere 3, we were looking at the standard type solutions. And it was pretty expensive, especially when you started looking at multiple hosts. And we needed multiple hosts because one of the things that we want to provide to our customers is the ability for the systems to be maintained whilst the system is live.
So you need spare capacity to put one in maintenance mode, free up resources, move virtual machines around, that kind of thing.
Exactly, yes. And we're also providing a high availability type system. Don't think that SMB doesn't need 24/7. It does, because they want to work. And in some ways, the SMB market, it's a more personal type system that they require. And if they want to go home and do their work from home and work in the midnight, then, so be it. They are still 24/7 type customers. They have requirements across the board. So high availability and 24/7 was one of our philosophies of building the systems.
I think that's something that's often forgotten as well. I mean, I used to run my own company. I was the smallest business that you could ever be. It was just me as the sole employee. And when it's just you put the hours in. I think a lot of people don't realise the sheer amount of work and effort that goes into running a small business, because you're trying to build it up, you're trying to maintain it, you're trying to keep on top of your cash flows, and so it's probably more of a full-time job than most senior corporate executive positions are, because if you don't do the work, then there's no one else to do it. There's no one to delegate to in these smaller businesses, are they?
No, that's right. They've got to do the work and they've got to fit it in.
So you eventually decided on the vSphere platform. I'm kind of assuming that changes in the SKUs in the various offerings down at the sort of foundation and essentials level is what triggered the use of vSphere for your solution and made it viable. Is that right?
It is. It wasn't right to start with. We looked at essentials as being a great move, bringing in the three hosted model, because it effectively gave us high availability with two hosts holding the whole of the environment, whilst the third host was in maintenance mode. So we could maintain throughout the day. Doing maintenance in the day was important to us because it actually cuts down the cost. If you're doing maintenance at night or at weekends, then of course you're having to pay premiums for that, or the customer is having to pay premiums for that. So two hosts, HA, one of those hosts goes down, the system still continues. Third host, maintenance mode, and so on. So the three hosted model was very important to us, but it didn't actually give us the tools that we needed to start with. Now, as I said, we have enterprise type skills, so probably we're privileged in understanding how the enterprise works. And the thing that triggered us and said VMware is the correct platform to use was when they introduced vMotion with Essentials Plus. And as soon as they did that effectively gave us a complete model that gave us the platform that we were happy with.
That's interesting. So, it appears to be that there is this pent-up demand in the SMB market for virtualization, but not just virtualization. They kind of want the same enterprise features that have historically been available to, elite inverted commas customers, people with deep pockets. But apart from, we want virtualization, what is it that is driving that demand? What is it that SMB customers are wanting to do with virtualization? What's driving them in this particular direction, do you think?
Well, I think it's a joint-driven requirement, and that we have to support our customers, diverse customers, and therefore we need the rationalization, and the virtualization gives us that. But also the customers themselves are starting to require a lot of diverse type services, which would in the past have required to have separate boxes. And therefore with the power of the units, the virtualization gives us the ability to provide those services on three hosts. So the skills, sorry, the services that we provide are not just, as you say, virtual machines. They're not servers and virtual desktops. We also provide, as part of the infrastructure, an enterprise type firewall, a stateful firewall that we provide. A lot of SMB customers, they're quite happy with the NAT that their local router provides them, and we don't think that's enough. And so we provide a enterprise type firewall. We can provide URL blocking, security. We can even provide firewalls between the different VLANs on their system. So if they want to run DMZ, or they want to run home working, or they have a different type of solution they require by part of their company, then we can provide that security of system to them. But we also provide integrated telephony. And again, virtualization means that it just becomes another service that we can add on to the customers that require it. Not all customers require integrated telephony, but it's something that we can just add on as a package. And as I say, virtualization gives us that ability to be able to pick and mix the services that we provide and provide a standard platform for everyone that we can support in a common way.
Sure. So here's a kind of unscheduled question which is just coming into my mind as we go along, which is, I've sometimes thought, because of the cost pressures that the SMB is sometimes under, that they're more willing to be innovative and stretch the boundaries of what the technology can do because the alternatives are too costly to consider. Whereas in the enterprise side of things, there seems to be a lot more kind of conservatism, a kind of unwillingness to push the envelope too far because of the risks that are entailed. So, I mean, if I came to one of my big enterprise customers in the past and said, hey, how about running your telephony system inside a virtual machine? I'd probably get an awful lot of, ooh, well, we're not too sure. We really need to think about that. You know, there's a lot of risk involved in what you're suggesting. Whereas somehow I think in the SMB, perhaps they're more willing to take on, for want of a better word, a bleeding edge, as it would be perceived by the enterprise guys. Is that a fair thing for me to say, or am I generalizing too much?
I think it's very fair to say that if you're sitting in an enterprise environment and you're trying to get a VM solution installed, you as a consultant can twiddle your thumbs for a month waiting for them to go through their risk analysis. Whereas the SMB markets, the client will say, well, can I have it today? And you sit there and you're going,
it's not quite like that.
not exactly like that, but yes. So with the SMB market, they want, if you mention a service to them and they can see the benefit, they'll say, well, when can you implement it? And obviously there is a cost implication, but and you have to worry about your budgets a little bit more. But I don't think that is a driving force or the preclusion of some of the installations that we've been putting in. It is, as you say, you can run telephony on your same platform, can you? Oh, well, how does that benefit to us? Well, as long as we can give them the benefits, they're immediately willing to, as you say, try it. And luckily, we've got the environments to be able to give those diverse solutions.
I mean, one of the things I was saying earlier this year in April when I was at the Silicon Valley VMUG was I was talking about the way the SMB works and how the SMB might be a portent of what the future will bring. And I think very often in our industry it's kind of like, well, what the enterprise does today, the SMB will eventually get in a couple of years' time. As that thing becomes commoditized and then becomes cheaper, then it'll eventually trickle down to these people. But I often think, or wonder whether it is possible in this new age that we're transferring to, is that could work the other way around. The efficiencies that you get in the SMB, where you're trying to do do a great deal of work with as small as resources as you can feasibly get away with, as we might say, doing as more with less. That's precisely the kind of efficiencies that the enterprise would dream of. The rapidity of being able to deploy something quickly and efficiently, and be able to show that it will perform well. Well, I think some enterprises would give their right arm to have the same agility and flexibility and elasticity, all those buzzwords, that the SMB kind of just does, because you don't have teams of people doing this and teams of doing this. You have a very small number of admin staff who have to wear many hats and make all these things fit together, albeit they're assisted and empowered by organisations like yourself. But there isn't like all these tiers of silos of expertise and silos of responsibility, which sometimes the very machinations of large enterprise environments is what takes a month for something to be agreed on. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yes, I if you could get rid of layers of administration on the enterprise side, and they could make decisions quickly. And I understand they've got a larger workforce to support, and they've got to check and make sure that systems are going to provide them with the services that they're expecting. But it's the standardization that, as you said earlier, the VBlock type environments that will start to give them that ability to say, well, here is a unit that we can integrate into our system straight away. No, it works. It's proven technology. It provides us with these services, and they can tick off the boxes. And effectively, that's what we've built over the last 3 years for the SMB market. So yes, if they want to take that block of environment and install it within their systems, then yes, I would say that they would benefit from that sort of.
Yeah, I think you're right to pull me up on the frustrations of the larger environments, because I was talking to somebody about this earlier this week about this guy I was talking to at VMware was talking about, it takes 5 days just to get a firewall change to be approved. And we all know that the actual time it takes to make that change is a matter of minutes, if you know what you're doing. And he said to the guy at the other end of the line, this is a very quick thing, can you not do it sooner? And well, no, the SLA is 5 days, and 5 days is what it'll take. And it's like, But I was saying to him, there is a reason why it's ended up that way. Was when I was an administrator in the 90s, the problem we had was too many chiefs and not enough Indians, to use a phrase here. And you had too many administrators making unscheduled changes, unorchestrated changes, and doing administration at cross purposes to each other. So some bright spark said, well, what you need is some sort of change management approval process. Okay, we all said. And so there is a reason why that situation in the enterprise evolved. I guess what's missing in the SMB is those sort of layers of bureaucracy and change management approval, which sometimes stymies the process. But anyway, I want to move on to my last question, which is one that I've asked everybody who's been on these SMB podcasts. You clearly are happy with what VMware is doing for you, and it's kind of creating a new industry, a new business in the SMB market for some people. But there's always some feature or function that you wish that you had, or wish that VMware would do. So is there something that you would like to see VMware doing, specifically to the kind of project that you're involved, that would make what you're offering that much a little bit better, or a little bit more sophisticated than what you're doing right now? What could VMware do for you?
Well, decrease the price, of course, but give us a better margin, the usual sort of things. But okay, more specifically, we like storage vMotion.
Right. Okay.
And that, although we've got vMotion, we have to shut machines down before, and it goes against our philosophy of 24/7, 5 nines. So if we had storage vMotion, that would be perfect. And also, don't think that the SMB market doesn't require the sophistication of their systems. And we were offering virtual desktops and and server support. And in some respects, we need additional resource pools to be able to do that, to decide where the underlying architecture is going to support those virtual environments. So we would be happy if VMware gave us at least 2 virtual resource pools.
And I guess the other side of that is that you're actually running some of the management infrastructure components on the same cluster. So you've got your virtual center and some sort of database backend, I assume, and you probably want to ring fence that and protect that. So if something does go awry, you've still got manageability of the overall system. Is that what you're kind of thinking of?
Exactly, because we're putting it all in our box. A 3 hosted box, name it, and we might as well make use of those hosts. I'm not saying that those hosts should be set up as 1 maintenance and 2 management and useful work. I'm saying that they need to share that environment, and if we can better use of those resources, all the better for us.
I know in my own lab environment I use resource pools, but obviously I've got Enterprise Plus licensing, and therefore I got the privilege of having that. I think if I didn't have DRS and resource pools, probably what I would do is use reservations on those VMs and guarantee a certain amount of CPU and memory to my virtual center and SQL box, and sort of put my arms around them and say these guys get a certain amount of guaranteed memory and CPU. But that's perhaps not as flexible as using resource pools, because you can create a resource pool and just drop the VMs in, and that collection of VMs are going to get guaranteed a certain quality of experience.
Yes, you can just forget about it. Remember that the problem that we face is supporting all of our customers in that way, and our channel partners. Because part of our environment is dealing with the channel, we would like to just forget about it and put those resources into particular resource pools, and we know then the environment is safe and secure.
Sure. Well, Wayne, thank you very much for sharing with me your insights. It's been great listening to somebody on the opposite side of the fence delivering services to the SMB rather than being an SMB in your own right. So thanks very much for your time today.
That's right. And if anyone wants to come and see us, then come to www.telius.co.uk, and they'll find a little bit more about us.